Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Let's take up the analysis of today's The Hindu newspaper by looking at a column from page number 6 of the Delhi edition. This column deals with the WTO rules on e-commerce and how India has been largely opposed to these rules which have been pushed by the developed countries. See, after the WTO was formed in 94-95, during its second ministerial conference in 1998, the WTO members agreed on the core rules for e-commerce regulation. Since then, attempts have been made to adopt these rules, but however, there has been strong objection to these rules, especially from few developing countries such as India and South Africa. And these rules will not come into effect without the support of all the WTO members, because WTO functions on the basis of consensus. For WTO rules to be adopted and enforced, it requires the consensus of all the members, and this has not been forthcoming by few developing nations, especially by India and South Africa, with regard to e-commerce regulation. The primary objection of these countries is that the temporary moratorium suggested by these rules on the imposition of custom duties with regard to electronic transmission of goods and services compromises the ability of developing nations to raise revenue through these custom duties, which is likely to hit the developing nations very hard. So this inability to synchronize their domestic policy with the WTO proposed rules on e-commerce has led to a standoff on e-commerce regulation between developed nations and few developing nations. Essentially, India and South Africa are of the opinion that if these e-commerce rules are implemented through WTO, it is going to affect the domestic interests of developing nations like India and South Africa, as it will not only compromise their revenue through taxes and duties, but it will also compromise their sovereignty with regard to economic policy making. So due to the constant objection by few developing nations, the other members of the WTO, particularly the developed nations, have formed an initiative known as JSI, or the Joint Statement Initiative, which was formed in 2017 by Australia, Japan and Singapore. These developed nations have convened a plurilateral joint statement initiative on the finalization of e-commerce regulation in order to promote fair trade practices under these rules. Most developed countries have joined the initiative, along with a few developing nations as well. And these JSI members account for more than 90% of global trade. So essentially, all the significant countries have joined the initiative, but more than half of the WTO members, who are mainly from the developing nations, they haven't joined the JSI initiative. So in this context, the writer is of the opinion that India has to reconsider its position, because while these e-commerce rules may not be in India's favor, India stands to lose more by staying out of these negotiations, as it won't be able to shape these negotiations. So the writer says that staying out is not an option, because with or without India and with or without the WTO, the developed nations and few developing countries are likely to go ahead with the JSI initiative and frame a global framework for e-commerce rules. If India stays out of this negotiation process, then it won't be able to contribute to the framing of these rules. And by not playing a role in shaping these rules, Indian interests would be hit even harder. Yes, it is true that India's economic interests could be compromised by some of these proposed e-commerce rules. But however, the best way to address these concerns is by participating in these dialogues and these initiatives. That is exactly the approach that other countries like China and Indonesia have taken. Initially, China and Indonesia were also opposed to these rules, but later they decided that by staying out, they are not contributing to the shaping of these rules, and hence they decided to join the initiative. See, in this regard, India definitely has a few genuine concerns. The proposed e-commerce rules, they do affect India's domestic interests and domestic policies, and hence it's important for India to take part in this process. See, for example, India is pushing for data localization, which mandates the companies to store and process data within the territorial borders of India. Because currently the Indian data that is collected, stored and processed by companies, they are usually stored in data centers located in foreign countries. So this not only compromises India's data sovereignty, but also increases the cybersecurity risk and as well as compromises the right to privacy, that is the right to data privacy of Indian citizens. Hence, India is pushing for data localization, and the same stand has been taken by the proposed Data Protection Bill as well. After this bill was tabled in the Parliament, it was examined by the Joint Parliamentary Committee, and this committee was also of the opinion that stringent data localization measures will have to be implemented in order to protect sensitive personal data. But however, developed countries take a very different view in this regard. Even though India's concern is genuine, the developed nations feel that data localization will increase the cost of operations, and they believe that it is a restrictive policy and they label it as an unfair protectionist trade measure. Then similarly, India and many developing nations are pushing for domestic laws which force the companies to reveal their source code. Developing nations are pushing for this mandatory provision in order to ensure that the source code or the source algorithm of the e-commerce platform is not unfairly designed to benefit a few players, in order to ensure that transparency and fairness is maintained in the e-commerce ecosystem. But developed nations are opposed to these policies because they believe that revealing the source code will compromise the incentive for innovation amongst private companies, thus leading to a dispute between the developed and developing nations. So while India has been pushing for data localization and for the mandatory disclosure of the source code, these proposals of developing nations are contested by the developed nations. While India is right in seeking to protect its data sovereignty, and while India is trying to retain its policy making space on key economic and technological issues, it cannot ignore the fact that by staying out of these negotiations and these processes, India doesn't stand to gain anything. Because in a globalized world, the digital trade, which has witnessed explosive growth on e commerce platforms, is going to bring enormous benefits to India as well. But by trying to stay out of these frameworks, India could end up losing out, and more importantly, India won't be in a position to shape and influence these negotiations, which are anyways being carried out by the developed countries. Now that mega regional trading arrangements are being put in place, such as the RCEP or the Regional Comprehensive Economic Partnership and the Trans Pacific Partnership, it's of utmost importance for India to secure its interests and concerns, not by boycotting or staying out of these processes, but by taking part in them in order to shape these negotiations in India's favor. Because as e commerce trade takes off around the world, India will lose out on enormous opportunities by staying out of these frameworks. India could even draw lessons from the Digital Economy Partnership Agreement or DEPA signed between Singapore, Chile, New Zealand. This Digital Economy Partnership Framework provides for an equitable arrangement, and such a model could be pushed by India as well. So essentially, it is very crucial for India to play a critical role at WTO negotiations because India's economic and strategic interests are tied to its participation in a globalized trading environment which is regulated under the WTO rules. And the key for India's success will lie in India's ability to negotiate these rules without compromising its genuine domestic concerns. Now let's look at this column from page number 15 of the online edition of the Hindu. This column deals with the plans to introduce a digital currency through the RBI. See, in the recent budget, the government has proposed that the RBI would be introducing a central bank digital currency. So, what are these central bank digital currencies and what will be the risks in the transition to a new monetary system? See, as per this proposal made in the budget, the RBI is going to introduce a digital currency that would be based on the blockchain technology. This introduction of a digital currency is set to give a boost to digital economy, and similar initiatives are being considered by governments and central banks around the world. This push for creating a central bank digital currency is a direct result of the growing popularity of private cryptocurrencies. Since governments and central banks have often taken a stand against private cryptocurrencies, they are looking to introduce a central bank digital currency which would make use of the same underlying technology, that is the blockchain technology. A blockchain is nothing but a decentralized ledger or a decentralized account book on which all the transactions are recorded and authenticated in a peer to peer network. Governments and central banks have generally been opposed to private cryptocurrencies because one, they are decentralized and cannot be controlled or regulated by the authorities, and two, private cryptocurrencies tend to be very volatile in their value and they're also considered to present a security risk. So, as a result, to counter the rising demand for private cryptocurrencies, governments and central banks around the world are considering the introduction of their own digital currency, which would be centralized and regulated by the central bank itself. Such a central bank issued digital currency would be no different from the cash. The only difference is that it will exist in digital form. So then why would the central bank issue such a digital currency? It has been claimed by governments and central banks around the world that such central bank issued digital currencies can give a boost to digital transactions, and more importantly, it can eliminate the cost of printing cash and distributing cash. But however, critics have pointed out that this policy doesn't serve any purpose because the reported benefits from such a central bank digital currency are largely unproven, and more importantly, it doesn't serve the core purpose for which such a digital currency was introduced. See, the core purpose behind introducing a central bank digital currency is to counter the rising demand for private decentralized cryptocurrencies. But however, this is where a fundamental difference arises. See, private cryptocurrencies are popular and they are well accepted today, mainly because those who are adopting private cryptocurrencies, they have lost their faith in fiat currency or the legal tender which is issued by the government and the central bank. That's because central banks, they tend to print excessive and large amounts of currency whenever needed when they are dealing with a crisis. And this essentially debases the currency value, thereby affecting the value of savings of individuals. But private cryptocurrencies, on the other hand, they are limited in number through their design itself, and thus they are able to retain a higher value, and hence investors see private cryptocurrencies as a hedge against inflation and as a hedge against the expansionist monetary policies of central banks. So it is for this reason that private cryptocurrencies are popular. But if the government is trying to counter the demand for private cryptocurrencies by introducing a central bank digital currency, then it won't serve the purpose, because at the end of the day, this central bank digital currency would be tied to the very same fiat currency. So by design itself, there lies a fundamental difference. And even with the introduction of a central bank digital currency, private cryptocurrencies will continue to remain popular, as pointed out by the critics of this policy. It's not just India which is pursuing this policy, but even several other countries, including United States, China, European Union, Denmark, and the others, have all considered similar proposals. US and European Union are in the process of introducing such a digital currency, whereas China has already brought in an initial version of a central bank digital currency. But Bahamas The small Caribbean island became the first country to introduce central bank digital currency, whereas countries like Denmark and Finland, which had proposed the introduction of such digital currencies, they have rolled back the policy now because eventually they couldn't find what purpose would these digital currencies actually serve. Denmark's central bank pointed out that the potential benefits of such a digital currency are unclear, and hence it cancelled its plans to introduce any such digital currency. But however, India is looking to go ahead and it is likely to join the league of other countries such as China, US, European Union, and the others who are also looking to introduce similar digital currencies that are regulated by the central bank. But however, such a transition from a physical cash based system to a virtual digital currency might pose a huge risk to the monetary system. The writer points out that any sudden and unplanned shift from physical cash to virtual digital currency would severely hit the cash flow and the cash availability with banks. And this in turn will directly affect their ability to give out loans and credits, thereby causing a massive shock to the monetary system. Because when digital currencies are introduced by the central bank, people are going to rush to switch their cash held in bank accounts into digital currency as it is more convenient, and this would lead to a mass withdrawal of cash from banks. This could directly affect cash flow and cash availability, and in turn impact the lending of loans and credits. So the column is cautioning the government to carefully consider these risks to the monetary system before rushing to introduce a digital currency whose potential benefits are still unclear and unknown. Now let's look at this column from page number 15, which examines the BrahMos missile deal signed recently between India and Philippines for the Philippines Navy, and it examines the implications of this deal along with evaluating the status of India's defense exports. See, India and Philippines have recently signed a nearly $375 million deal for procuring the BrahMos cruise missile from India, which would be operated by the Navy of Philippines. The BrahMos is one of the world's fastest cruise missile that has been jointly developed between India and Russia. It has been developed through a joint venture between India's DRDO and the Russian counterpart, and the name of the missile has been derived from the two major rivers of India and Russia, that is the Brahmaputra and the Moskova. Initially, the BrahMos started out as an anti-ship missile, but today it has been developed into a versatile platform which can be launched from multiple mediums, including the land, sea, subsea, and air, and it can be used to attack surface targets and as well as sea-based targets. So multiple variants of the BrahMos have been developed and even deployed by both India and Russia, but initially its range was limited to just around 290 kilometers. This was because of a restriction under an export control regime known as MTCR, or the Missile Technology Control Regime. This export control regime regulates the export of critical missile technologies and drone technologies, and it places a range restriction of 300 kilometers. So only the members of MTCR can export these technologies, which can be used to build missiles and drones that can travel more than 300 kilometers. But since India was not a member of MTCR, the range of the Indian version of BrahMos was kept limited to 290 kilometers, because otherwise Russia would have breached its obligations under MTCR. But in 2016, India became a member of MTCR, thereby enabling the extension of the range of the missile, and today its range has been extended to 450 kilometers and subsequently to 600 kilometers. According to reports, the missile is being designed to have a much longer range, and this combined with its speed and accuracy, it has become one of the most sought out cruise missiles in the world. So it's because of these capabilities of the BrahMos that Philippines is procuring this missile for its navy, which is currently involved in a direct standoff with China over the South China Sea conflict. There is also a proposal to procure the BrahMos for the Philippines army as well. And even other Southeast Asian countries like Thailand and Indonesia are in talks with India to procure the BrahMos. In fact, even a lot of interest has been shown by West Asian countries as well. And if these deals go through, it will significantly enhance the market for the Indian designed and Indian built BrahMos. Philippines in particular is emerging as a key defense partner for India because apart from looking to procure BrahMos for its navy and army, it is also looking to procure the ALH Dhruv helicopters built by HAL, along with the Dornier reconnaissance aircraft for its Coast Guard. So these defense deals, which are being discussed with Philippines, they depict the growing defense trade relationship of India and Philippines and also depicts the growing share of India's defense exports. In fact, between 2016 and 2019, India's defense exports registered a massive 700% growth. And this was a direct result of government policies and government incentives that has facilitated India's domestic defense manufacturing sector. Over the last few years, the government of India has come out with a simplified process for defense industrial licensing, and it has also relaxed export controls and the grant of NOC or no objection certificate. The government has even extended line of credit to several friendly foreign countries, which could be used by these countries to procure defense platforms from India. Then upon this, India has stepped up its defense trade diplomacy and has even deployed defense attaches in Indian embassies and high commissions around the world who have been playing a key role in finding the right markets for Indian defense goods. Then very soon, the draft defense production and export promotion policy is likely to be finalized, and this is expected to give a further boost for indigenous defense production and defense exports. Then the government has also constituted a high-powered committee which includes the Defense Minister, the External Affairs Minister, and the National Security Advisor. And this committee has been given the mandate to provide fast-track approvals for defense exports of major defense platforms to friendly countries of India. Apart from this, several foreign countries have been expressing interest in India's military hardware, including missile systems, radars, warships, patrol vessels, artillery guns, helicopters, the light combat aircraft or the Tejas, and in 2020, the Cabinet Committee on Security headed by the Prime Minister had even approved the export of the Akash surface-to-air missile, which has attracted a lot of attention in Southeast Asia and West Asia. Now let's take a look at an article on page number 1 and 8, which examines the visit of the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister to India and evaluates some of the recent developments in the India-Sri Lanka relationship. See, we have discussed in several previous sessions that Sri Lanka is currently going through a grave economic crisis, and India, being a reliable partner of Sri Lanka, has stepped in and has provided the required assistance to help Sri Lanka overcome this crisis. For example, India has extended a line of credit of nearly $1 billion, which provides the option of concessional loans from India, along with a currency swap arrangement between the central banks amounting to $400 million. And India has even deferred a debt payment of around $515 million by 2 months, which gives the necessary relief for the Sri Lankan economy. So in the light of this large-scale economic assistance from India, the visiting Sri Lankan Foreign Minister has thanked India and has stated that India's support to Sri Lanka during this time of crisis has given the relationship a new energy. Then upon this, both the sides have also discussed the fishermen issue, which has always been a bone of contention in the bilateral relationship. The crossover of Indian fishermen into Sri Lankan waters and their subsequent arrest or killing always creates a crisis in the relationship. And this issue has come up again recently because clashes between Indian and Sri Lankan fishermen has led to the death of two Sri Lankans, and hence the two sides have agreed to resolve this issue through talks and dialogue. Then both the countries have signed an agreement which would allow India to develop oil tank farms at the strategic Trincomalee port. India had pursued this project since many years, and finally Sri Lanka has awarded this key project to India, which will further enhance India's influence in Sri Lanka. Then Sri Lanka has even invited Prime Minister Narendra Modi to take part in the BIMSTEC summit, which is going to be hosted by Sri Lanka. BIMSTEC is essentially a sub-regional grouping focused on the Bay of Bengal region and includes the littoral states of Bay of Bengal as the members. It consists of India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, Thailand, and Myanmar. So India, Sri Lanka cooperate on regional cooperation as well through platforms such as BIMSTEC. And all of this marks a significant improvement in the relationship compared to the deterioration that was seen last year. Because last year, a key project of India was cancelled by the Sri Lankan government, which was the East Container Terminal project at the Colombo port. This strategic project was supposed to be executed jointly by India and Japan, but the Sri Lankan government, under Gotabaya Rajapaksa and Mahinda Rajapaksa, who are seen as pro-China figures, ended up cancelling this contract at the last minute and gave away the same project to a Chinese company. On similar lines, several other key Indian projects were also cancelled, and most of them were being handed over to Chinese companies. So this had affected the ties between India and Sri Lanka to an extent. But as Sri Lanka started facing a grave economic crisis, it tried to please and placate India by offering the West Container Terminal project to an Indian company. So following the award of this project, India was also awarded the construction of oil tank farms at Trincomalee, and in return India has delivered on its promised assistance to the Sri Lankan economy. So this essentially marks a new turn that the India-Sri Lanka relationship has taken, because quite often, whenever the Rajapaksa brothers are in power, it has been noticed that India's ties with Sri Lanka gets affected primarily because of their pro-China tilt. But the Sri Lankan Foreign Minister has clarified that even though Sri Lanka is close to China and even though it has joined the Belt and Road Initiative, this is not going to compromise Sri Lanka's traditional relations with India, and Sri Lanka has assured that its relationship with China will not come at the expense and cost of India. Now let's take a look at the mains practice questions. The first question: few WTO members are pushing ahead with the joint statement initiative on e-commerce, but India has thus far resisted pressures from the developed world to jump onto the JSI bandwagon. Analyze. The second question: why is the government introducing a central bank digital currency? What will be the risks in the transition to a new monetary system? Kindly write an answer to these questions and post your answers in the answer writing portal, for which the link shall be given in the description box below. So this concludes our discussion for today. Thanks for watching.